Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to Cognism's cold calling webinar. So just to go into it, to start off with, who will be talking us through it today. So this is myself. My name is Hugh. So yeah, I'm one of the sales team leads at Cognism. So I've been at Cognism for about a year and a half now. As a sales team lead, my job is effectively to help. I manage a group of 6 SDRs, and it's the job to essentially help them do their jobs. So support them in every way I can to ensure they're performing and hitting their targets. I'll pass you over to Charlotte if you want to introduce yourself, Charlotte.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Charlotte. I'm from SalesLoft. I've only been with SalesLoft for a few months now, so still pretty new. And in short, what SalesLoft does is we help sales team to close more deals from the initial stage of contacting, such as phoning, which we'll talk about in this webinar, all the way through to winning deals and then the renewal process. Excited to be here.
Amazing. And Jenny, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, please.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny. I'm a senior SDR here at Cognism. I joined in June, so during the first lockdown, which was quite a while ago now. But yeah, my role here at Cognism is to bring in qualified opportunities to the company. I'm really loving the role so far and excited to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So we're gonna just go through briefly the itinerary. So starting off with the agenda. So why is cold calling effective? Then going on to the prospect. So finding the prospect and what did you do beforehand, any prep that you do. Getting started. So in terms of finding those key accounts that you're looking to go after, finding the relevant companies, the relevant decision makers, and then how you engage with them. Then going through the script. So all about the script in terms of how we do it, the processes that we have in place. Also, there's obviously a confidence element to it as well, understanding the right things to say and the sort of the lines of questioning we go down, and then objections as well. So the common objections that we find regularly as SDRs and how we combat those as a result. Awesome. Okay, cool. So going into the first slide. So Charlotte, starting off with yourself, why do you find cold calling effective?
I find it a lot of the time the easiest way to kind of get hold of my prospect or buyer, plus being slightly lazy, the least time consuming as well. It's so much easier for me to just quickly pick up the phone and explain to someone why I'm so interested to speak with them, rather than me crafting out an email or a video.
Amazing. And Jenny, how about yourself? What are your thoughts in terms of cold calling and how effective do you find it?
I mean, at Cognism, the team here, we do believe in a multi-channel approach, but I do think, for me personally, calling is the key way to build rapport. I think over the phone, if you call somebody, you can actually get your personality across, have a laugh, and you can actually tailor your pitch based on the responses that you're getting as well from the prospect. So yeah, for me, it is the most effective way of outbound.
I love that. And I find a lot of buyers are so busy right now, and they may have seen your email or they may have found it really interesting, but a lot of the time it's not until I call someone and they're like, oh yeah, I saw your emails, I just haven't had a chance to reply. So I think it's massively this time aspect as well, not on our end, but also on the buyer's end.
100%. And just with that, it's the, as Charlotte mentioned, it's the quick wins. Like you can spend 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes writing a personalized email. And it's, in terms of time efficiency and getting those quick wins, it's so much easier and more efficient use of your time to just get on the phone and call someone straight away, especially, potentially at the moment as well with working from home, getting straight through to people, having those conversations, getting your personality across, as Jenny says, builds that rapport, and then as I said, generate conversations and deals further down the line. So I 100% at Cognism and at SalesLoft as well. Cold calling is still a massive part of what we do on a day-to-day. Awesome. Okay, Amazing. So going on to the next slide then. So just a little stat for you. So in terms of cold calling, we actually found that 71% of company owners would rather hear from vet reps via the phone than any other type of touch point. So it's more effective than any other emails, LinkedIn, drop-in visits. Well, obviously not relevant at the moment, but it is the most effective form of outreach. So as I said, this is what has led to a lot of our success at Cognizant and why we why we do it so much on a day-to-day basis. Amazing. So finding your prospect then. So yeah, starting with you then, Jenny. So when you're looking for a prospect or looking for an ideal prospect, what's your sort of your process? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it is important, obviously, to do a bit of research before making a call. You know, I'll usually just bring up prospects LinkedIn, have a look at where they're based, you know, any recent posts that they've shared recently. I used to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn doing that, and maybe a bit too much time. But at the moment, I just bring sort of my list of calls for the day, for example, 20 calls, and sometimes I'll actually bring up their profile while the phone is calling, like dialing. I think it's a good way of like building common ground as well. If you find that somebody's based in the same like location as you, or they've got a common interest, it's a good like way to personalize the intro. So I think it's definitely good to do a bit of research beforehand.
For sure.
I think what you mentioned there about you used to do a lot of research before, like I massively used to overthink. What shall I say to them when I first start? And I used to spend probably sometimes like 30 minutes researching one prospect for them not to pick up. So I think it's really important to do your research, but don't spend ages on it. I like to do my research at the beginning when I first research a prospect once, and then when I call them the second or the third time, I then don't have to redo that research. I just have to do it once for that, whatever, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
100%. Sorry, Jenny. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. You know, yeah, I was the same as Charlotte previous. I spent a lot of time, maybe too much researching. And as we all know in sales, it's all about volume as well and keeping that activity high. So I think you can spend too much time doing that, and it will, you know, you won't be as productive perhaps in the amount of calls that you hope to do that morning or that afternoon. So yeah, as much research as you can, but not spending too much time, perhaps 30 seconds tops.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, Charlotte. No, it's about finding that balance, right? It's about finding that balance, because I think especially when people are new and when they get into cold calling, you know, I think you do tend to, and I did it when I started. You tend to do a lot of research, if anything, to boost your confidence before you're going into it. But then it can get to the stage where you're spending, let's say you spend 5-10 minutes per call, and then you're trying to make 50 calls a day. So much of your time is effectively wasted by spending time researching, and then your productivity as a result is then massively detrimented. So it's about finding that balance. But you need to know enough to be able to like personalize it to the prospect and actually understand, you know, what their processes are, so we can ultimately help them to grip them on the conversation. But then, as I said, not too much to the extent where you're wasting time, or you're not wasting time, but you're spending too much time researching and not enough time actually calling. Sorry, Charlotte, sorry, carry on.
I think I would actually say it probably is wasting time if you're spending a long time on it. There's probably 4 key areas that I will do my research. I'll look on LinkedIn. I'll look on their careers page on their website and have a quick look on their website, like who their buyers are, what they sell. I will Google the person's name, because sometimes you'll find some great articles and things like that when you Google. And then I'll look on Salesforce, and that's it. And I can do that within 5 minutes. And that's it. Then I have enough information there, probably too much information, to go on to then personalize, because all you need is one nugget of information to then start your call with that person.
Of course, 100%. Jenny, would you say you have a similar process to Charlotte there?
Yeah, I think Charlotte mentioned she does a lot of her research in the morning, like spends like maybe 5 minutes there, whereas I will do it as I'm calling, so like there and then. I'll probably find out. I think a great way I've like built rapport in the past is, for example, if I came across somebody who's based in the Northwest like myself, bring, you know, that into it. Oh, I can see you're based in Manchester or Liverpool, you know, not too far from myself. And it's just a nice warm way to introduce yourself and the call. I'll probably find out, you know, which industries the company are targeting. And that way I can bring in companies that we've worked with who target similar industries. Again, builds that trust and like initial connection. So yeah, quite similar. I think it's definitely great to have a couple of facts before you go into the call to personalize it. Definitely.
100%. And this sort of leads quite nicely into sort of targeting accounts. So you know, at Cognizant, for example, we do have an account system. So we distribute our sales reps with a number of accounts, which they then are tasked with going after. I would say with this, in terms of if you are doing an account approach like ourselves, then maybe investing a bit of time to learn a lot about the account, but then as a result, you won't have to do much individual research to the respective personas within the accounts. So understanding the account in and out is a really good way, but then you would only need to do that once, and then obviously all the stakeholders within that account, in theory, you won't have to do too much research as a result. So Charlotte, then, so in terms of targeting accounts, how is it you go about sort of finding the relevant companies, and what is it you look for when you're doing when you're targeting accounts?
Yeah, I'll get on to that, but something you mentioned about finding the stakeholders, I think this is something that I didn't used to do very well. When I first started, I'd literally find one person from the company and then move on to the next. But finding enough people in the company is really important, because there are so many buyers involved in the purchasing decision. So actually getting hold of all of the stakeholders, I think, is really important. But I use Cognizant, but I also use LinkedIn, and I use LinkedIn to do my initial searching, finding the stakeholders, finding a bit of information about them, and then I'll use Cognizant to generate my lists and export them into Salesforce. But a few things that I probably found out more recently on LinkedIn, which are a few nuggets in Sales Navigator, is finding things like going on the tab where it says new role within 90 days. So people who have just moved roles, these people are looking to make an impact in the business. That's why they've moved roles or why they've been hired. They've been hired to do something. So these are usually really great people to reach out to, because they're probably willing to listen to how you can help them make an impact in the business in their new role. And then there's another one which I probably only found out last year, and it mentions people who follow your company on LinkedIn. Yeah. And this tab is absolutely golden, because of course they're going to speak with you. They follow your company. They're interested in your company on LinkedIn, and it's just such a warm intro. Curious why you're following our company. What's interesting about it? Does it match with your goals or priorities or things like that?
100%. And you know, if you can make a cold call warmer, then you know, obviously you would do that in an instant. Jenny, in terms of, you know, what you're doing in terms of identifying key accounts, is it similar to Charlotte, or do you have a slightly different approach?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I was going to firstly touch on LinkedIn Sales Nav. A colleague of mine, Ash, he did a training sprint on how, you know, he uses Sales Nav and creates lists and like how he manages them. And since that sprint, I've definitely been doing that. So I've sort of been creating searches based on key personas I'd like to reach out to. And you can just keep track of them, and you can even if you've booked somebody in for a meeting, I'll always add that person into a list, and you can just manage those lists. And even if they move on like 3 or 4 months later or a year later, you can keep that relationship that way. In terms of the key accounts that I go after, I do make sure that, as Charlotte mentioned, I'm not just going after one person within that account. It's great to target a variety of people, even, you know, SDRs like ourselves, who can refer us to the right person to speak to. That's definitely worked for me.
Yeah, I love that tip. Contacting the SDRs or people in their team who maybe aren't as senior in the decision makers, but they'll be able to tell you a lot of crucial information, like for us, what CRM they're using, or a bit about their process, or maybe even their challenges. So when you're speaking to that decision maker, you're loaded with all this information. Love that.
Yeah, definitely. And I was just going to touch on, obviously, as SDRs here at Cognizant, we do use the our own platform. So I think we have a specific filter where you can, as you can see there, event triggers. We can search for specific triggers and get alerts for the right time to reach out to people. So, for example, if a company's recently received funding, they're obviously in the right mindset to buy and invest. And then if they've recently hired, a new sales team as well, they're obviously focusing on growth and probably in a position to spend money as well. So I think if you're provided with the relevant information, you can definitely personalize your outreach and find the optimal time to reach out as well, which really helps.
I think they're both really, really good points. As a sort of a sales team lead, what two things that I really stress on top of what Charlotte and Jenny have explained is really understanding what your ICP. So like knowing your ICP inside out, so you can obviously target and identify the best fit customers, accounts that fit your business and that work best with your business. And also, I guess it works more for larger accounts. So potentially, well, probably 100, maybe, 100 to 100 plus employees is not giving up on an account. So doing everything you can. Obviously, with these larger companies, there are a multitude of key stakeholders that decision-making processes. So, don't just call a sales director and maybe they're not interested and then just give up. Let's go after the marketing director, or let's go after the operations officer, or let's go after the CEO, or let's go let's go after the business development director. So I always stress, populate your accounts with a multitude of different key stakeholders, and then go after all of them. Don't just call one, get maybe a bad response and then give up. Charlotte, I'm interested to actually put the question to you. When you're going after, potentially, and Jenny as well, sorry, to go after these, big accounts, do you believe in a sort of a bottom up approach, or so sort of, as we said, maybe speaking to SDRs or team leads, people that are rather sort of lower down in the hierarchical chain, and then getting referrals up? Or would you start with the bigger fish, as it were, so starting with these business development directors, CEOs? What do you think is the best way of doing things, starting with you, Charlotte?
It's a really good question, and I don't think there's kind of a silver bullet answer to this, because you can actually spend a lot of time doing bottom-up research and ending up spending a lot of time that, and then when you get to the decision makers involved, they're actually like, okay, we use a competitor and we've just renewed, and then you've used a lot of your time to then do all that research and then find the decision maker. I think I just probably go in for the senior leadership. I always just prospect VPs, CEOs, and then on the journey of me prospecting, when I add them to my cadence, along the way I start adding their colleagues on LinkedIn. So in the background, I'm doing that researching, that bottom up approach. But fundamentally, me personally, I always do top down.
Okay, amazing. And Jenny, are you similar, or do you have a slightly different way of doing things?
Yeah, I think quite similar to Charlotte. Really, I will always go for the the more senior level decision makers. I think, as personally, I do target a variety of companies, so they could be small startups to huge enterprises, for example, that you'd like to get to book a meeting with, or whatever. But I think with smaller companies and mid SMEs, I will definitely go for the CEOs and the directors. But with larger companies, it can be more difficult to get hold of those more senior people. So I will try to target the more junior professionals, so then that you can build a relationship with them. And I have had moments where I've been on the phone with a BDR from a larger company, who's then passed my email or follow up on to their manager, which has resulted in a meeting as well. So I think they both work well, but definitely it's good to target the senior people as first port of call, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, just with targeting those those sales representatives, I guess the guys more so on the front line when it comes to their processes, you get an understanding of what they do and obviously their processes, so you can actually then take a step back and can we actually help this company? Are they a good fit? So it's a really great way to to understand what they're already doing, to then ultimately see if they're a good fit for what you're offering.
I think
And also,
another
like,
way to do that,
yeah,
sorry, carry on.
no, that's right. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I just think another way to do that, and I was taught this probably only since I've been joined at SalesLoft, is it's good to speak to someone to understand the processes, but we also forget that typically they have a careers page, and the person you're prospecting, they're likely being hired for. In a lot of cases, like especially for me, a lot of salespeople, their job specs are on the website, and this literally tells you their day-to-day responsibilities in one page, their goals, their achievements, their targets, and everything like this in such a small page, which I find that golden. So that's something I've been utilizing a lot more recently. Is I'll reach out to the less senior people to find out more about their process and strategy and stuff like that, but also things like the career page is just golden for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never actually thought to do that, but that's actually a really, really, really good idea. Yeah.
Write it down.
Fantastic. And then the final point on this, unless you guys have got anything else to like to add, is the use of referrals. So, we speak about speaking to someone and then they likely or often they refer you to someone else who it's more relevant to. It's using that as an in. So I spoke to Joe, for example, and he actually directed me your way. As he said, you'd be very interested to hear about in my case, Cognizant, and how we could ultimately add value to you. I think using it sounds like a little thing, but using their name and using that they've directed me to you, and they believe that you would definitely be interested to hear about what I've got to say and what we offer, I think is a really, really powerful way in gripping a prospect. That, giving them some familiarity that someone they know has referred you on, I think is a really, really useful tip, and one that my guys use a lot and have been really successful for. Awesome. Okay, guys. So just moving on then. So on to the calling. Now, in my opinion, just before Jenny and Charlotte have their input, confidence is literally the hardest thing about cold calling. I think, yes, there's lots of technicalities and techniques and all of that, but the main thing is confidence. And when you're starting, that's the biggest hurdle, I feel. Well, that was for me anyway, is the ability to call someone out of the blue and instantly generate a rapport with them within 30 seconds. But once you break that confidence barrier, I think to be honest with you, everything is made so much easier, and then it's little things. Then it's little improvements need to be made. But as I said, in my opinion, confidence is the biggest hurdle to jump over. Charlotte, what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, 100%. I used to be petrified of the phone. My first sales role was just literally cold calling the whole day, and I hated the fact that I'm going to be talking to someone really senior than myself. I'm really new in this industry, and I'd have all these battling thoughts like they don't care what I'm about to say and things like that. But it took me actually quite a while to gain up my confidence in order to call people. And it's actually funny because I had all these thoughts in my head like they don't care and stuff like that, and these emotions kind of overlapped with my reality, and I thought that's actually the case when I would speak to people and I was helping them so much that they would love the fact that I'm calling them and things like that. And obviously that's not always the situation, but I think it is really tough to get pumped for calling, and confidence is a huge kind of part of that. It's taken me quite a while actually to do this. I don't know how you gained your confidence over time, Hugh, but I'd be interested to hear, putting the question back on you, how you've actually gained your confidence over time.
To be honest, just doing it, and I know that sounds really obvious, and that may not be the most constructive of advice, but the best way to gain confidence, well, to get better, but to part of that being the confidence is just to bite the bullet and do it, and just get going. and accept that you're going to make mistakes, and then as you make mistakes, you then learn from them, and then you eke them out going forward. And then this is actually what I was told by one of my colleagues at Cognizant, that they're just people. They've got 2 arms, they've got 2 legs, they've all done silly stuff in their past, like we all have done. Like, they're just people.
They all go to the pub on a Friday. Well,
exactly.
they used to go to the pub on a Friday.
exactly. They,
Yeah.
they're just, they're just people, and
Yeah.
nothing, like, it's nothing to be afraid of. And that would be the mindset that I go in with, and I try and instill in everyone else, that and the worst thing they can say is no, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The worst thing they can say is no, and it's like, okay, brilliant, right, hang up the phone, move on to the next person.
I think not letting it get to you is really important as well, because I know I used to massively let it get to me. Like, someone would say no, and that would put me off the rest of my calling. But what I actually do remotely, if I have a calling session and maybe I have a bad call and I'm like, okay, I need some motivation, so I'll just quickly call one of my colleagues, give them a quick call on Slack, have a little laugh about the fact that this person's hung up on me or they've said no, and then carry on, just to regain that kind of office environment again, and to just boost your confidence back up.
100%.
I think you definitely just got to have the courage to accept that you are going to get knockbacks when you're cold calling. I was the same as Charlotte in my first role, a sales role. I was terrified to pick up the phone, or even for the phone to ring. I used to work in a silent office with the 4 of us, and I was just so scared. But I think you've got to set yourself a goal, perhaps 50 calls a day, and just take each call at a time. Also, a lot of the SDRs at Cognizant, every week we have Zoom power hours, now that everybody's working from home as well, where we'll just sit on Zoom and make 100 calls and laugh about it, as well, as Charlotte said.
Yeah,
I think
making it fun. Why can't it be fun? Why can't all this stuff be fun? I think something that, again, only recently I've managed to do is actually stop caring about whether they actually need this service or they want it, or what they actually say, and just going into the call and thinking, okay, I'm going to say my hypothesis, what I found out and what I think their challenge is, and then the goal of it is to get them to answer, and that's it. And I'm just not overthinking the outcome of it. So what if they say no? Just go on to the next person.
100%.
Yeah, and usually, especially with everybody working from home now, I've had a few calls where I can hear kids screaming in the background, and they're all just normal people at home with their families and pets running around. So just use it as a chat, I think, and relax, and just be confident, as you said. It's important, but just don't overthink it.
It's also I mean, your shell hardens over time, so the more knockbacks you get, the stronger you become as a result. So it's just part of the process. But Charlotte and Jenny's points are so valuable in terms of pushing through that confidence barrier. But as I said, once you get through it, I think cold calling is pretty not easy from there, but it makes everything so much better.
I never thought I would say this, but I actually quite enjoy it. Once I get into the flow of doing it, I do actually enjoy speaking to people. And there are so many times where I've finished the call laughing so much that I'm nearly in tears, because I'm talking to someone who's another human and we can relate to each other's situations right now. And it's just nice creating that kind of relationship. It doesn't always end in a yes as well. I've had times where I've spoken to a prospect and it's been a no, but I'm still in contact with them because we've created that relationship, and it's I've created technically a new friend, and it's nice. It doesn't have to always end the way you want it to. I think that's I wish I knew that when I first started that. Every call doesn't need to be a demo.
Exactly. And I think all they're not all perfect calls either. You can come off a call and feel a bit sad, or if people are a bit cold with you, or they didn't have enough time for you, and you've got to just remember, you called them with the goal, you wanted to help them and add value to what they're doing. You were trying to help, so don't let that get to you at all, and just move on to the next call. I think
100%. I think the takeaway from this is the best way to break that barrier is just to do it. And obviously, have a great support network around you, as Charlotte said. Jump on a Zoom call and laugh about how someone's told you to go away or be rude to you. Like, let's have a fun and a joke and enjoy it, and have those people around you to support you. And that's obviously I can only speak for Cognizant, but that's one of the great things about our culture as a sales team, is that we have that support network and that confidence boost all around. But yeah, my personal best advice is just to get going, and then as you go, you eke out those mistakes, and your shell hardens over time as you become more confident.
I think, and accepting the fact that you're probably going to be a bit crap at first. I was
Yeah.
awful when I first started calling, but just to accept it and know that you're going to get better.
I think even on like a Monday morning, like we find that we're like, when I do it, and I'm sure Jenny's the same. You're a bit rusty and you stumble over your words, and you don't do it right, and you're like, and it takes you maybe 5 or 10 calls to get back into the swing of things. But as you say, Charlotte, once you're into it, it's enjoyable, and then it just flows. Awesome. Okay, guys. Sorry, Jenny. No, you go. No, that's right.
So just to say, remember we started doing, like, on a Monday morning at Cognizant, the SDRs, we go out into breakout rooms on Zoom, and just do a little bit of role play of a morning to practice and just warm up before we go ahead and call, and that definitely helped a lot as well. So perhaps give your colleague a call and do a bit of practice beforehand on a Monday morning, and get into the swing of things that way.
Amazing. Cool. Okay, guys. As you know, I know we're all working from home at the moment, but you don't have to be sat by yourself doing it, guys. With the technology we have nowadays, we can all still work together. Like, I've, for example, do group Zoom calling sessions with my guys to keep everyone interactive and everyone together. So yeah, having that support network and having that having that around you is super helpful in terms of building that confidence. Right, guys, should we move on? So quality and adapt then. So what's the purpose of your call? So when you're going into a call, what are you thinking about? How do you sort of how are you structuring the call? What's the do's and the don'ts? So starting with you then, Charlotte, how do you approach a cold call in that respect?
So I think we touch on this in the next slide slightly, but my kind of main goal going into a call is to tell my hypothesis, what I've learned, what I think their challenges, and how I help to see and get an answer. And that's kind of my initial goal, is to just get someone talking. And then within the call, obviously you can see like bant and stuff like that. I think I kind of take that with a pinch of salt, because it is really important. Oops, my volume's playing up. It is really important to obviously qualify the person, but I do take it with a pinch of salt. Things like budget, not everyone's going to have budget right this second for a tool that they didn't necessarily know they had a challenge for, and things like that. Does that answer it?
Yeah, no, brilliant. And then I guess same question to you then, Jenny. So what do you find is the purpose of a call, and how do you go about structuring it?
Yes, I think very similar to Charlotte. I think prospects, when I call a prospect, they do want to see that you care, and they want to believe that they can be helped as well. So I think it's very important to just, as we can see there on the slide, like, let the prospect talk. I think they want to be listened to, just get a clear picture of their goals, and then after that show how we can meet them and hopefully can help. So yeah, for example, finding out their pain points as well. Sometimes they don't even know that they do have pains, but I think if they can be guided and just ask open-ended questions, and then kind of go from there, the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, we always say that we're consultants, so it's a discovery call, right? It's not a sales call. We're going into the call to ask them how they currently go about doing things, and then to ultimately see if we could be of benefit to them. So I think being a cliche salesperson and just going into a call and trying to ram what we do down their throats is just not the way of doing things. I've always found that the harder you push, the more they pull away. So it's about, as it said on the slides, 70% discovery. So being inquisitive, being genuine, coming across, actually asking what they do and how they do things, and then understanding that, and then seeing if we can add value, and then seeing if we can add value and how we add value on top of what they already do. So, and we always go, we're not looking to replace processes, we're looking to add to their processes to ultimately make it more efficient. But I think being, going in as an aggressive salesperson is not the way to do it in my experience. Going, as I said, more of a consultant, that you're genuinely there to try and help, is the way to approach it.
I think on that as well, like when you're asking questions, also back it up with the research you've done. Instead of saying, what's your sales process, be like, from my research, I can see that on your LinkedIn you say this, but can you tell me a bit more about what your day-to-day looks like? And actually backing it up with a bit of research as well, instead of just asking such broad questions like, tell me about your priorities, but actually back it up. Look, I can see you're hiring and that your sales team has grown X%, as well as that you posted about this. But from your perspective, what are your key goals? And actually backing it up with a bit of research as well.
Yeah.
And Charlotte, just to you then. So I'm intrigued at Sales Loft. How do you guys, when qualifying, do you use BANT, or do you have a different process, or is that for more the demos that you take place, or do you do that in the discovery call?
So I look at the sales team, the size of it. I look at their tech stack, and their process, and I can kind of qualify on that. If they have a big enough sales team, then I can tell that they would benefit from Sales Loft. But I don't really use BANT. We use Medic, because BANT is kind of like qualifying to say it's yes for a discovery, whereas Medic is kind of throughout the whole sales cycle.
Okay. So alternative, we for our discovery calls at Cognism, we actually use Ant, so we don't actually use the budget. I think from my experience, budget is actually more for the demonstration. So when we book it in with our business development managers, who actually run the prospects through our platform, we actually use Ant. So authority, are they the budget holder? Need, do they actually have the use of our platform? Like, are they looking to grow, for example? And timing, are they looking to implement a solution like ours within, we have a 6-month period, but the timing can be whatever your company dictates. I would not, I guess advice on this was, I would not be as blatant with it in terms of like, do not ask directly, okay, are you the authority of this? As that sounds obvious, but
when are you going to buy?
Yeah, like, when are you going to buy? Like, when we don't ask budget, because it's very hard to write, do you have enough money for this? Like, it's, you need to be tactical about it. So we don't use the budget side of things. That's not a part of our SDRs, in our SDR's job to do that. But so for authority, like, a question I would ask to understand the authority is, okay, so is there anyone else you'd like to involve in this decision-making process? Is an example. So it's not quite direct, and I guess almost patronizing to an extent. And then need and timing as well. Need, again, is more, I guess you said, Charlotte, once you understand their processes, and you understand our platform and and the use of what you're selling, you can understand the need from there. And then timing as well. Timing is like, is this a priority for you? Are you looking to grow within the next 6 months? If this solution meets your needs, how quickly would you like to get going? These sorts of questions around timing are also really good, I feel, to find out the information without being quite so direct. Jenny, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, totally. I agree with you there, Hugh, in terms of time as well. Just when would you be looking to implement something like this? When would be a good time to call back? And then with authority, I know you actually ran a training sprint on this, but instead of like, who's your boss? Like, can you give me their number? I'd probably ask, like, is there anybody else you'd like to involve in this process? Would you like me to invite anybody else to the meeting? You know, bit more casual and less pushy, I think always does the trick.
100%, 100%. Awesome. Okay, guys. And then moving on to the script then. So kind of carrying on a little bit from the previous slide. So starting with yourself then, Jenny, how would you go about sort of structuring a sales call? Do you follow this script, or do you have a slightly different way of doing things?
Yeah, no, I do, Hugh. That's more or less yeah, the script I follow. I'll definitely start with, you know, being very polite. You know, hi, my name's Jenny. I'm calling from Cognism. Have you got 30 seconds to talk? And I can explain the reason for the call, you know, the nature of the call, or if it was a referral. I think these always work nicely as well. Hi, you know, Hugh, I've just spoken with your colleague, Charlotte. She asked me to give you a call. Have you got 30 seconds? Then you catch their attention. You're also being polite, so it's a warmer way in. Yeah, then I'll tell them a bit about what Cognism do. Obviously, you've done your research as well, so you know I can see you target XYZ industries. We work with companies who target similar industries as well, and we help them, you know, generate new business by providing them with accurate contact data. And then I think the discovery is very important, so to dig out the pain points. I think, you know, sometimes prospects don't even realize that they have any pains, but I think asking open-ended questions really works, because they could shut you off and say, you know, we don't need anything like this, we're not interested. And then I'd sort of ask, like, oh, do you mind me asking how you're going about, you know, generating contact details at the moment, etc. But I think once you've digged into their pain points, you can then provide the value, definitely. So that's where the second pitch would come in.
Yeah.
Throw in a few case studies in there, and then yeah, book them in. Ask them if they've got a spare 15 minutes this week, and yeah, that's definitely the script I'd follow. Yeah, I don't know about you, Charlotte. Is yours similar, or do you go about it differently?
I do mine slightly differently. When I go into a cold call, I understand that the people I'm calling are probably back-to-back meetings most of the day. So my goal isn't to book the demo. My goal is to set up an additional 10-15 minutes for a discovery.
Okay.
So yeah, and I find this works really well because I'm not asking them for a lot of time now. I'm asking them for maybe 4 minutes right now to see if, look, this is what I've learned. And if this is interesting or something that's on your priorities right now, then let's set up 10 minutes tomorrow to chat about this. And then actually having time where I can really dig into the discovery. So I probably do only 1 and 2, and then say, look, I'm not looking to book in time now, but if the goal here is to book in an additional 10-15 minutes to chat about this. And I wanted to talk a bit about I've mentioned hypotheses a little bit throughout this. And if you asked me 6 months ago what a hypothesis is, I'd be like, what are you on about? And I've only learnt this at SalesLoft, and it's honestly been a bit of a game changer. And we use it here in our introduction. And what it is it's basically you creating a story or a situation you've come up based on the research and evidence you've done. And this massively builds credibility, and I cannot recommend this more. So you're basically, from the information you're finding, instead of saying, look, I saw this on your LinkedIn and we help with this, actually creating a scenario. And look, you're not going to get the scenario right every time, but because you're creating this scenario, it builds a lot of credibility. And it might be something like, look, I've done a lot of research on you, and I noticed you're selling to enterprise within the IT sector, and I can imagine it's really hard to get hold of a CTO in an enterprise company. They not only hate talking to salespeople, but they're always really busy as well, which makes getting engagement difficult. And I wanted to earn 10 minutes, maybe tomorrow or the day after, to tell you a bit how we help with this. And that's it.
Amazing. I think that's a really, really, really valuable idea, actually. Just, I guess, my thoughts in terms of the script, I think having a spine like having a script and then sort of a spine to what you're saying is super helpful in terms of, especially early doors. Again, when I think a script does add does give help with confidence, especially when you're starting out cold calling. And I think this is a really, really good pattern to follow. Just, I think in reality though, as you get more confident and you get better at cold calling, this script, you know, doesn't become as prevalent, and it sort of starts to, as you said, you become more confident, you become more adaptive, and the conversation doesn't necessarily follow this exact thread. But certainly having a script and following this this spine, as put, especially early doors and when you're first starting out, I think is really helpful. Cool. I'm just conscious of time, guys, so we'll get moving. So getting into the flow then. So in terms of personalizing a call, how is it you go about, that ultimately that first 30 seconds, that introduction, starting with yourself, Jenny, what's your process and what do you think are the best way to go about doing that?
Yeah, sorry, I think I mentioned this just on the last slide. I probably should have saved it until now. But basically, I think to be very polite, I'll just usually ask for 30 seconds of their time. I'm Jenny, I'm calling from Cognism. Have you got 30 seconds and I can explain why I'm calling? If now's not a good time, we can book in, just a couple of minutes, 5 or 10 minutes tomorrow or the next day. So yeah, I think just be very, very friendly and warm, have a positive tone as well, always helps, even if the person on the other end of the phone is not so polite or they're not so warm with you. I think being respectful and friendly is the way I'd go in. Yeah, definitely. How about you, Charlotte?
So I just find the first 30 seconds so crucial, and I think something that's really important is to be a bit of a pattern interrupt, something that they've not necessarily heard on the phone. The C-level people are getting called all the time, so how can I, as a salesperson, separate myself and differentiate myself from that sea of sales reps out there also calling probably the same prospects as me? So I like to sometimes try different things when I'm calling. I've heard people say this one about, look, I'll be honest with you, this is a cold call. Do you want to hang up now, or can I have a few seconds to tell you why I'm talking to you? And I haven't personally done that. I don't think I'm have enough guts to do that yet. But what I do is I'll be really transparent and say, look, we've never spoken before, but I've, in my opinion, slightly warmed you up with a personalized video that I sent to you yesterday. But can I earn a second to tell you why I've been so keen to talk to you about, and then I'll say something, why I'm so keen to talk to you about your recent hires, or why I've been so keen to talk to you about your recent LinkedIn post. And then from that, if they say yes, then I'll lead into my hypothesis about that topic I've just mentioned.
Yeah.
I think sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Well, sorry, Hugh. No, I think that's definitely a great way to approach it. Also, what was I going to say? Oh, sorry, you go, Hugh. I'll come back to you if I've forgotten.
No worries. I think just following on from Charlotte's point. I think there's a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of advice out there about how to best go about, I guess, introducing a cold call. And ultimately, I think it depends on the person and your own personality, and trying out different things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Like different, as Charlotte touched on, different introductions work better for people with different tones of voice, tonalities. And I know that sounds like a little thing, but I actually really believe in that. So ultimately it's about trying different things out and finding what works best for you. And then the old age saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if it's working for you, keep on doing it. Would be the best the best advice for that that crucial first 30 seconds.
Yeah, and not overthinking it. Like, don't spend ages like rewriting an intro script. Just how you would talk to your friend, or I like to think about how I'm talking to my mum. How I talk to my mum, this is how I should be talking to my prospects. In that human language, casual, but not overthinking it, not being like a little robot at the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. I think like being genuine. I actually had a call. I think it was last week, and yes, I think it was a CEO, I think, or somebody very senior, and they said, is this a cold call, Jenny? is this a sales call? And I said, yes, it is. But, if you've got 30 seconds, I can explain, why I'm reaching out and how I think we can help. And he said, because you've been honest there and said that, yes, it is a sales call, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. And that was something that, I was made up with that. I think it worked quite well.
Yeah, I love that.
Amazing. And I think, going back to the I guess slightly back to the previous point, keep it really simple. So, potentially going back to the other slide, sorry, but in terms of like, I always think about it as if you're speaking to your grandma or you're speaking to an 8-year-old. Keep it really simple, keep
Yeah.
it chilled, keep it
Yeah.
really like relaxed, clear, to get your point across. Going barreling in there with loads of really complicated language and being really aggressive is just, in my experience, just the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Be kind, be respectful, be honest, as Jenny mentioned, and just keep it simple. And then if you need to add technicalities on top, you can layer it on top. But as I said, the first 30 seconds, just imagine you're explaining what you do to your grandma is kind of how I picture it when I'm doing it. Awesome. Okay, guys, should we move on? Just slightly conscious of time. I know everyone's very busy. So, how to build rapport then. So, I know we've touched on this, briefly throughout, and I guess on the previous slide. But Jenny, building rapport. Like, what would you say your main bit of advice there would be in terms of building rapport with a prospect?
Yeah. So I think, my advice would be just to be genuine, be yourself, relax. These are just, as we touched on earlier, they're just normal people at the other end of the phone. Don't be robotic. And it depends on the type of person you are and the type of approach you have. Personally, for myself, I'm not very salesy. I'm more like have quite a calmer tone, so I'll just go into the conversation like I'm talking to a friend, as Charlotte said earlier, and be yourself. I think always listen. I struggled with active listening when I first started in sales. I would just talk at the prospect, and then you don't remember anything they're saying, and you can't actually provide the value. So I think listen. I make a couple of notes when I'm on the phone, key things that they've said or that they need help with, and then I will make sure I cover them all before the call ends and tick them off. I think,
Amazing.
just relax, be polite, friendly, and show genuine interest as well into what they're saying.
Amazing. Charlotte, are you much the same?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's so important, just being genuine and yourself. Just if you're not this really jokey person, don't go into a call trying to be really jokey just because your colleague's really jokey and they get lots of demos. Literally put your personality through. I think that's my biggest advice. Just be yourself.
Yeah, find out, experiment, find out what works for you, and then just stick with it. I think is most definitely the best thing to do. And in mirroring their tone, if you can tell they're a busy person, get straight to the point. But if they're relaxed and they're jokey, how was your weekend? What'd you get up to? Again, just to add that bit of rapport, and that people buy from people that they like, right? So if you can trying to be as likable as you can is certainly so key in generating ultimately meetings and then sales down the line. Awesome. Okay, then, and just onto our final slide then, objections. So probably one of the hardest things to deal with on a cold call and as an SDR is handling objections, or one of the things that you have to do most regularly. And so for you, Charlotte, then, what are the main objections that you come across, and then how do you combat them?
So the main one we're getting at the moment, and I asked all my colleagues this before this call, just to get the most relevant one that we're hearing, and it's this one of, look, sorry, I'm really busy. I'm just about to go into a meeting. Can you call me next week? And that's quite a common one we're getting. People running into meetings, or I'm already in a meeting. Call me tomorrow, or call me next week.
Okay, and then how is it you go about sort of handling that, or are you just respectful and just like, yep, fair enough, I'll call you back? What was it you do there?
So I think firstly, and I spoke about a pattern interrupt before, and I think that's really important with your objections, not being really defensive and being like being like, look, I can imagine you're so busy right now. But I don't usually say, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow, because chances are they're probably not going to answer. They have no reason to answer. I've not told them anything to build up that credibility, so why would they answer?
For sure.
But I will usually say, like, look, I really appreciate you're super busy and I've caught you randomly mid meeting. I called someone the other day and he was mid onion chopping his dinner. So I was like, look, I get that I called you mid onion chop, but look, can I take 20 seconds to tell you from my research why I think we can help you? And look, if that's interesting, then great, I'll give you a call when you've just mentioned. But if not, then let's part ways and I don't need to call you tomorrow. Fair?
For sure.
And most of the time people will be like, yeah, of course. And
I
then
love that.
and then relate to that when you send your email, or even if they say no, just be like, sorry for catching you in the middle of chopping onions. I hope your dinner's really delicious tonight, or whatever.
No, I love that. I love that. I think that's brilliant. What about yourself, Jenny, in terms of what's the most common objection that you find, and how is it or what's the best way you can sort of combat it, and what's the advice you give there?
Yeah, so I've been getting a lot can you send me an email instead lately? I get that quite a lot. And it's the easy way out for them, isn't it? Can you send me an email and I'll follow up with you, but they could take a week or two to actually read that email. So how I've been dealing with that one lately, I'd usually just say, just to get some context for the email, that's fine, I'd be happy to send you one across. And then I'll try and get some context, ask a few more questions. And sometimes I've asked, they've continued the conversation and they've provided me with all the information I needed, and that I don't even need to send an email on, and that I'd actually get them onto a call. But also, I'll also ask, is it fair to assume that you would have read that email by Thursday, in 2 days' time? And if they say, yes, I'll then say, would it make sense for us to book in a call for then, and we can have a chat about what I've sent. Obviously, if you hate what I've sent, then you can cancel the call. If you like it, like let's follow up and have a chat about it. And that's worked for me quite a lot. I think, just keep when you come across objections like that, I think just keep your tone positive and ask questions, because it will always give you a better response than just saying, okay, bye, I'll send you an email. I think it does.
And 9 times out of 10, those send me an email, that's just a fob off. They don't actually want to hear your email. And actually saying that to them, be like, look, when I hear this from prospects, this actually means leave me alone, you annoying sales rep. So I just want to see where I'm landing here with you, and adding in a bit of humor for them to be like, okay, what do you want? And then telling them and be like, look, let me like I said before, let me tell you this in 30 seconds, and if it's of interest, then I'll send you like Charlotte, that's her sister, like Jenny said, getting you too confused, like Jenny said, and if it's of interest, then we'll keep the meeting, but if not, we'll part ways.
Yeah, and I think just touching on the framework here, the feel the feel felt found, I think is a good framework of having it in sort of in understanding, in taking objections and understanding the prospect, and leading to ultimately combating those objections. So just to go through it, so you understand how they feel and the problems that they face, and you've heard what they're saying, and then it's telling them about someone else that's felt very similar, about the concerns they may have, so for example around pricing or ROI or whatever it is, and then going into about what someone found, so to then tell them how that person found when they bought our product, and then what they got as a result of that. So understanding them, explaining that it's very, we empathize and we understand, we've come across people that felt the same way, and then what people have found as a result of using our service is a good framework in terms of handling objections. But objections, I think when it comes to objections, when it comes to anything that's potentially product related or service related, I think that's kind of on the individual to really go away and do that research and do that revision to understand what you're selling inside out, so you can handle accordingly. But definitely what Charlotte and Jenny have mentioned is certainly probably the biggest biggest objections we get as an SDR team, and so really some really helpful advice there. So thank you so much, guys. I'm just looking at the time, guys. I think we have in fact run out of time. So Charlotte and Jenny, thank you so much for attending this afternoon. This afternoon now, this morning. What you guys have gone through has been so helpful. So thank you so much, and thank you to everyone that's listened and come along today. And yeah, please join our next webinar when it's coming up. Amazing. Thank you very much, guys, and yeah, we'll speak soon. Cheers, guys.
Bye.